Debby Romano, casting director for Shrinking, which is co-created by Bill Lawrence, and you and Bill go way back. So what was it like reuniting with him on this?
It was great. It's always a pleasure to work with Bill. We worked with him since Scrubs, and by we I mean my business partner Brett Benner and I. And yeah, it's always you always have great material, and he has great taste, and he listens. He's respectful, and he also has great suggestions. So
So what were those conversations with him like? Because I'm assuming you guys just have, shorthands now and just are tossing ideas at each other after 20 years working together.
Yeah, I mean, Jason came attached, and it was a big group of executive producers on this, because Jason was an executive producer, Brett Goldstein also co-created it, and with Bill and the Doozer team. So there were just a lot of questions and discussions about who would be great for what role. And it all started with the Paul character, really.
But yeah, Harrison Ford.
Yes.
I understand he is Bill's neighbor.
He is Bill's neighbor. Brett and I made a list. It was a lovely list to make for, an Apple show where you can reach for the stars. And it was probably the first time we put Harrison down on a list where we didn't feel like we would be completely laughed out of the room. And Bill, after going through the list and sort of picking out 5 or 6 names that we thought would be great in the role, as well as elevate the material, he sort of stopped us and said, I think these are all great people, but I do want to try to go after Harrison, and it might take some time, but I think it'll really be worth it. So he was the one who ran with that, and it was fantastic.
Do you think he had him in mind at all, or do you think it was you guys putting his name down on the list that triggered it for him?
I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. It's a great question. And he didn't bring it up until the end of our Zoom with all of the producers about that role. So I don't know.
So how long did chasing Harrison take?
The chase was a few weeks. They had to just coordinate him having time to read it, because he was working on Indiana Jones and he was in London. And then he wanted to meet someone from the show, and Bill was in LA, I think, at the time, and Brett Goldstein was in London. And so Brett met him for dinner, and they just fell in love.
Yeah.
And, then it was a matter of doing the deal. So that's what took the longest, but we knew he wanted to do it. So that was exciting, to say the very least.
Is that just kind of like on your end, when you guys used that you put his name down as sort of as like dream big, pie in the sky type of thing, and then it becomes reality. So is that just kind of like surreal for you guys? It's like, oh, it actually happened.
Completely. And meeting him at the table read, that was the first time we were in person with our cast, because everything was done on Zoom. And, he was just lovely and excited to be there. You never know what you're going to get. And he was thrilled. It was really wonderful.
I love the cast because you do have, big names, established names like Harrison, obviously Jason too, and then, recognizable people like Michael Erie. But then you have, like Lukita Maxwell as Jason's daughter, Alice, who is amazing. So what was it like casting some of these, I guess, unknowns, you could call them, like,
Yeah, and that's like Brett and my favorite part is doing that. And it's what we've done for so much of our career. We haven't really worked on a ton of projects that you can get a Harrison Ford for. So Lukita was in the submissions, and I had seen her on Generation, and I loved her on that. I mean, she gave birth in a kiddie pool in the bathroom of a mall in that pilot episode. She just blew me away, and she found such great comedic moments in that. And for this, we really wanted someone grounded. Jason was looking for someone who didn't play the angst and just felt like Alice in her skin. And Lukita, from the first self-tape that we got, really just, she shined.
Mhm. Did she do any like chemistry reads with Jason?
Jason read with every actor. So that was a wonderful thing. And, we did that on Zoom. And he was wonderful at giving things a go as they were on the page. And then he would improvise with them, and everyone just loved the process. He was really generous.
What about Jessica Williams as Gabby? Because she has pivotal relationships with so many characters, and she works in the office, obviously, with Jason and Harrison too. So what was like casting her?
So Jessica came in for a meeting. She was one of 3 women that producers met with, and she just blew them away. I think her, what she shared in that meeting, which Brett and I were not on, because we always think people don't, when it's a meeting with producers, you don't need extra eyes on you. So we just kind of bowed out and hoped for the best. And like she has done such amazing things with this role, like above and beyond anything that you can hope for. But it's always that moment where you're like, okay, this is an offer, and you hope that someone's going to bring at least what's on the page. But Jessica is like a magician. I mean, all that she does with that, and making it her own, and having a point of view, all of it is so important to the show, and I think really makes that character stand out. And the writers do a great job with it, and then she takes it and really runs with it.
Yeah, she's also really great with Krista Miller, who's in all of Bill's shows. And I know that Liz was written for her, but I feel like this is kind of like a different type of role for her too.
I agree.
Yeah.
She gets to show her vulnerability. She has so many dimensions, and her relationship with her husband is hilarious.
I love Ted McGinley. I love that casting and their dynamic.
Yeah, there's a good story with Ted too. I don't know if you want to hear it, but
let's hear it. What happened?
Okay.
I know you guys, he's been close on on Scrubs and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So he was almost Dr. Cox on Scrubs. And it was just one of those instances where we went to the studio and he was our front runner. And then we got to the network, and John McGinley just came up a little bit and blew the room away. And Ted did a great job, but wasn't the choice. And then about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, we did another show where Ted auditioned. They wanted a big name, and in the end, we ended up with Chris Maloney. But Ted came in.
Oh, was that Surviving Jack?
Surviving Jack, yes. And Ted came in, and he did whatever it took to get the role. And it was, as wonderful as Chris Maloney was, Ted, I think, would have been equally as wonderful, and really gave himself to the process, and that was awesome to see. And when this came up, it was really just a matter of Brett and I calling Bill and saying, let's stop torturing Ted McGinley. Let's give him something. He would be amazing. And so luckily Bill was like, I hear you. That makes total sense. And there we go.
Yeah. 3rd time's the charm, right?
I mean that, and like, I think timing is everything in that, like when it's really meant to be. And he just is so standout here. I love watching him. So
yeah, I want more of him. Because I feel like he just like comes in and then he just kills, and then he leaves the room, and then you're like, come back.
I think everyone feels like that, especially on the production. So I would like to believe that in season 2 we will get more Derek.
Have you guys what's been like the process on season 2 so far? Like any casting decisions or just new characters in general?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet.
I also love the patients. Jason's patients, Jimmy's patients, and Heidi Gardner's one of them. So they're like kind of bit parts, because you don't know if it could just be like a 1 episode thing, or they'll be recurring. So how did you go about finding his patients?
Well, we knew with Heidi's character, with Grace, that was going to run the season. She was going to be, the largest of the patient roles. So we had a bunch of people audition, and we had some great choices, but in the 11th hour, Bill was like, I really want someone from SNL, and I think Heidi Gardner would be great. Can we check her out? So we did, and it's just a matter of scheduling, because SNL was going on for a good portion of what the timing with our show. So we just had to work the schedule around her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also love Luke Tenney. He's there a lot, so he lives with them. So what was that process like?
Yeah, so Luke, when we originally started casting that role, we were open. Any ethnicity, they just had to be like early 20s and be able to play all sides of that character. And Luke, when we got his self-tape, there was something so different about it, because a lot of guys approached it, especially that opening when he has to call Jason out for yawning and all of that stuff. He approached it in a way that was different from everybody else, who sort of put the testosterone out there. And Luke was more like, it reminded me of Mice and Men. He was more like Lenny, and he was like the gentle giant. And it was so fascinating to see that work. And, it's one of those things where you're watching a self-tape and you just find yourself leaning in and leaning in. And he went through the process, and everyone fell in love with him. And there you go.
Yeah, and you kind of need that, because he bonds with Alice on the show, so it's like a different kind of tenor with that relationship too. So
yep.
Awesome. Well, Debbie, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you back in a little bit.